Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my kitchen counter, fingers tracing the chipped edge of a ceramic mug that hasn't held coffee in weeks. My name's Elise, I'm 30, and this quiet suburban home, nestled between identical houses with manicured lawns, is the world I've built with Clive, my husband. He's 42, a paramedic who wears the weight of saving lives on his broad shoulders. I can still see him in the early days, sitting across from me at our worn wooden table, his calloused hands wrapped around a steaming cup as we talked into the early hours about everything and nothing. Those nights, the kitchen glowed with a warmth that wasn't just from the vanilla-scented candles we'd light during dinner. It was us, our laughter, our dreams. The way his steady gaze made me feel like I was the only person in the universe who mattered. Back then, this house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was a sanctuary, a place where the chaos of the world couldn't touch us. I look around now, and the kitchen still holds those memories in its corners. The table's surface is scratched from years of shared meals. The faint scent of vanilla lingers like a ghost of happier times, and the window above the sink still frames the backyard where we'd watch the sunset with glasses of cheap wine. But the warmth, it's gone. These days, I'm alone most evenings, staring at the empty chair where Clive used to sit. His night shifts stretch on endlessly, pulling him away from me, from us. I can't even remember the last time I heard his deep, rumbling laugh echo through the space. Months ago, maybe longer. I sit here, night after night, the silence pressing down on me like a physical weight, heavier than I ever thought silence could be. The clock on the wall ticks louder than it should, each second a reminder of how much has slipped away. I've started to feel like a ghost in my own home, drifting through rooms that used to hum with life, unseen, unheard, just a shadow of the woman who used to live here. I walk past the mirror in the hallway and barely recognize the hollow eyes staring back at me. I miss him, miss us. I miss the way he'd sneak up behind me while I was washing dishes, wrapping his arms around my waist and whispering something silly just to make me smile. Now the sink is empty, the dishes are done, and there's no one to sneak up on me. I've tried to fill the void, reading books, watching shows, even talking to myself just to hear a voice, but nothing sticks. The loneliness creeps in, settling into my bones, making every corner of this house feel colder, emptier. I keep waiting for something to change, for Clive to walk through the door with that old spark in his eyes, for the kitchen to feel like home again. But night after night, it's just me and the echoes of what used to be. I've lost track of how many times I've sat at this kitchen table, waiting for a sound, a sign, anything to break the stillness. Tonight's no different. It's just past 9 p.m. and I'm here again alone, the clock on the wall ticking relentlessly, each click a tiny hammer against my nerves. I know Clive won't be home until dawn, his paramedic shift stretching into the early hours, leaving me with nothing but this empty space and my own thoughts. I'm slouched over the table, my phone in hand, scrolling through endless feeds of other people's lives. Perfect vacations, smiling families, moments I can't relate to anymore. My thumb pauses on an old photo of us, taken years ago on a beach somewhere, both of us grinning like we'd never known a care in the world. My chest tightens at the sight of those smiles, the kind we haven't shared in so long. I can almost hear the sound of the waves from that day, feel the warmth of his arm around my shoulder, but it's just a memory, fading like a Polaroid left in the sun. I set the phone down and lean back in the chair, staring at the ceiling as if it might hold some answers. How did we get here? How did we drift so far apart that I can't even picture us in the same room without it feeling like a dream? Does Clive even notice how lonely I've become, how I've turned into a stranger in my own life? I wonder if he feels it too, or if he's so buried in his work that he doesn't see the distance growing between us like a chasm I can't cross. My mind churns with these questions, over and over, a loop I can't escape. I push myself up from the table, unable to sit still any longer, and start pacing the house. My bare feet pad softly against the hardwood floor, the sound barely audible over the oppressive quiet. I move from the kitchen to the living room, then down the hallway, no destination in mind, just a need to move, to do something to shake off this suffocating numbness. I stop at the front door, my hand resting on the cool glass as I stare out into the dark street beyond. The neighborhood is asleep, the streetlights casting long, lonely shadows across the pavement. I feel trapped, caged by the silence of this house, by the weight of waiting for a life that might never come back. I turn away, wandering back to the living room, where I flick on the TV just for the noise. Some old sitcom rerun plays, the canned laughter jarring against the emptiness I feel inside. I pour myself a glass of wine, the cheap kind we used to drink together, and sip it slowly on the couch, hoping it'll dull the ache. But it doesn't. Nothing does. The laughter from the TV feels like it's mocking me, a cruel reminder of what's missing. I mute it, the glass halfway to my lips, and sit there in the dim light, the quiet creeping back. I'm sitting there on the couch, the muted TV casting flickering shadows across the room, when a thought hits me like a punch to the gut. I can't keep living like this, drowning in the silence, waiting for something that might never come. My heart's racing as I realize I've already crossed a line in my mind, a line I never thought I'd even approach. I've been so lonely, so desperate for any kind of connection, that I did something unthinkable. I arranged a meeting, a secret one, with someone I barely knew. Just the thought of it now makes my stomach churn with a mix of guilt and lingering need. I was looking for something, anything, to fill the void Clive's absence has carved into me over these long, empty months. I remember the day I decided to do it. I was in our bedroom, standing in front of the closet, my fingers trembling as I pulled out a dress I hadn't worn in years. It was a deep blue, form-fitting, the kind of thing I used to wear when Clive and I would go out for date nights, back when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I slipped it on, the fabric cool against my skin, and stood in front of the full-length mirror. My reflection stared back at me, a woman I didn't quite recognize anymore. My eyes were wide, haunted, but there was something else there too, a flicker of desperation, a hunger for something to make me feel alive again. I smoothed the dress down, my hands shaky, and applied a touch of lipstick, the shade a little too bold for a casual night out. Every move felt deliberate, like I was stepping into someone else's life, someone braver, someone reckless. But underneath it all, the guilt was already gnawing at me, whispering that this was wrong, that I should stop before it was too late. I ignored it. I had to. The drive to the motel felt like it took forever, even though it was just a few miles away. The hum of the car engine was the only sound, blending with the chaotic rush of my thoughts. What was I doing? Could I really go through with this? What if someone saw me? My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone following me, someone who'd know exactly what I was up to. When I finally pulled into the motel parking lot, the neon sign above the entrance flickered erratically, casting an eerie pink glow over everything. It felt like a scene from a movie, one where the main character is about to make a terrible mistake. I parked in the farthest corner, away from the street, and sat there for a moment, my breath shallow, trying to summon the courage to get out of the car. I told myself I could still turn back, drive home, pretend this never happened. But I didn't. I couldn't. The encounter itself was brief, intense, a whirlwind of emotions I can barely put into words. I met him in a dimly lit room that smelled faintly of stale cigarette smoke and cheap air freshener. He was a stranger, someone I'd only exchanged a few messages with, but in that moment, he was a lifeline. There was a rush of relief, a fleeting sense of being seen, of mattering to someone, even if it was just for a stolen hour. But there was shame too, heavy and suffocating, wrapping around me like a shroud even as I tried to lose myself in the moment. I didn't let myself think too much, didn't let myself dwell on Clive or the life we'd built. I just let myself feel something, anything, other than the aching loneliness that had become my constant companion. When it was over, I drove home in the early hours, the weight of what I'd done settling into my chest like a stone. The streets were empty, the world asleep, and I felt like the only person awake, carrying a secret too big to hold. I slipped back into bed, careful not to wake Clive, who was still out on his shift. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, I could still feel the ghost of that. It's a few days after that night at the motel, and I'm standing in the kitchen, the morning light streaming through the window above the sink, painting the counter in soft, golden streaks. I'm trying to act like everything's fine, like nothing's changed, as I pour water into the coffee maker with hands that tremble just slightly. The machine gurgles to life, the familiar sound a small comfort in the otherwise quiet house. I've been on edge ever since that night, jumping at every creak of the floorboards, every unexpected noise, as if the truth of what I did might somehow announce itself to the world. I keep telling myself I've covered my tracks, that there's no way Clive could know, but the guilt is a constant shadow, lurking in the back of my mind, whispering that I've made a mistake I can't undo. I hear the front door open, and my heart skips a beat before I force myself to relax. It's just Clive, coming home from another grueling night shift. I turn to face him as he steps into the kitchen, his paramedic uniform rumpled, his broad shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He looks older this morning, the lines around his eyes deeper, his face pale under the fluorescent light. Usually there's a flicker of warmth when he sees me, a tired smile or a quick nod, but today there's nothing. Just a quiet intensity that sends a shiver down my spine. He drops his bag by the door with a heavy thud and pulls out a chair at the kitchen table, sitting down without a word. I watch him, my fingers tightening around the handle of the coffee pot, as he rests his elbows on the scratched wooden surface, staring at nothing in particular. The silence between us feels different today, heavier, like it's charged with something I can't quite name. I pour him a cup of coffee, the steam rising in lazy curls, and slide it across the table toward him. My voice comes out brighter than I feel as I say, "Rough night, huh? You look beat." He doesn't respond right away, just wraps his hands around the mug, the same way he used to during those late-night talks we'd have years ago. But there's no comfort in the gesture now, no shared history to lean on. His fingers tap lightly against the ceramic, a restless rhythm, and when he finally looks up at me, his eyes are sharp, searching, like he's trying to see straight through to the secrets I'm hiding. My stomach twists, but I force a smile, turning back to the counter to busy myself with wiping down an already clean surface. "So, how was your day yesterday?" he asks, his tone casual, almost too casual, as if he's testing the waters. I freeze for a split second, my hand pausing mid-wipe before I answer, keeping my voice light. "Oh, same old. Ran some errands, caught up on a few things. Nothing exciting." I glance over my shoulder, hoping to see that familiar ease in his expression, but his face is unreadable, his gaze still locked on me. The air in the kitchen feels thicker now, like it's pressing against my chest, making it harder to breathe. I turn back to the counter, my mind racing. Does he know something? Is he just tired, or is there more to this quiet intensity? I'm reaching for a dish towel when I hear the faint rustle of paper behind me. My heart stops as I turn slowly, dread pooling in my gut. Clive is holding something in his hand, a crumpled piece of paper, small and unassuming, but I recognize it instantly. It's the receipt from the motel, the one I swore I'd tucked away deep in my purse, out of sight, out of mind. How did he find it? My pulse hammers in my ears as I watch him smooth it out on the table, his movements deliberate, almost methodical. He doesn't look at me right away, just studies the faded print, the date and time stamped there like a confession I can't take back. When his eyes finally meet mine, there's a hardness in them I've never seen before, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. "What's this?" I stand frozen, the dish towel slipping from my fingers to the counter, my breath caught somewhere in my throat. The kitchen, once a place of comfort, now feels like a battlefield. The dim light from the single bulb above the table, casting long, jagged shadows across the scratched wooden surface. It's past midnight now, hours since that morning confrontation began, and we've been at this for what feels like an eternity, circling each other with words and silences sharper than any blade. The faint hum of the refrigerator fills the room, a low, constant drone that seems to amplify the tension hanging between us. I glance at Clive, sitting across from me, his hands clenched into tight fists on the tabletop, the knuckles white from the pressure. His face is a mask of barely contained emotion, and I can see the strain in the set of his jaw, the way his shoulders are hunched as if bracing for a blow. My mind is a storm, thoughts whipping through me like a gale I can't control. Should I keep denying it? Stick to the flimsy excuses I've been weaving since he held up that damning receipt? I could say it's nothing, a mistake, a mix-up, anything to buy more time. But every lie I've told so far has only dug the hole deeper, and I can see in his eyes that he's not buying it, not anymore. Or do I come clean, lay it all bare, and face the wreckage head-on? The fallout of that choice terrifies me. What if he walks out that door and never comes back? What if this is the end of everything we've built, the final crack in a foundation already crumbling? My heart races as I weigh the consequences, each option feeling like a step off a cliff with no way of knowing what's at the bottom. My mouth is dry, so dry I can barely swallow, and my hands tremble as I grip the edge of the counter behind me for support. It's like my body is betraying me, showing every ounce of the fear and guilt I'm trying so hard to hide. There's a weight in my chest, heavy and suffocating, like a stone pressing down on my ribs, making every breath a struggle. The guilt I've carried since that night at the motel has grown into something monstrous, something I can't outrun anymore. It's not just about what I did, it's about why I did it, the loneliness that drove me to that desperate edge, the ache for connection that I couldn't find here in this house, with the man I promised to love forever. I've hurt him, I know that, and the realization twists in me like a knife, sharp and unrelenting. I can't keep running from this. I can't keep pretending. The lies are choking me, and I know that if I don't speak now, they'll consume whatever's left of us. So I take a shaky breath, my voice barely above a whisper as I start to speak, the words feeling like they're being dragged out of me. Clive, I need to tell you the truth. That receipt, it's mine. I was there at the motel. I met someone. I didn't mean for it to happen, not at first, but I was so lonely, so lost without you here. I felt like I was disappearing, like I didn't matter to anyone anymore. I needed to feel something, anything, and I made a terrible mistake. The confession hangs in the air, raw and jagged, and I watch his face as the words sink in. His expression crumples like I've physically struck him, the hurt so vivid it steals the air from the room. His eyes, those steady, familiar eyes, glisten with unshed tears, and I feel my own throat tighten at the sight. He doesn't say anything at first, just stares at me as if he's seeing me for the first time, or maybe seeing a stranger wearing my skin. Then, abruptly, he stands, the chair scraping harshly against the floor as he moves to the sink, putting distance between us like he can't bear to be near me right now. His back is to me, his hands gripping the edge of the counter, head bowed as if the weight of my words is too much to carry. I stand there, rooted to the spot, my heart pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. The kitchen feels smaller now, the walls closing in with every second of silence that stretches between us. I want to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to say something, anything, to ease the pain I've caused, but my feet won't move, and my voice is trapped in my throat. I've just torn open a wound I don't know how to heal, and the rawness of it hangs heavy in the air, suffocating us both. After what feels like an eternity, Clive turns back to face me, his eyes red-rimmed and glistening, his jaw tight with a mix of anger and devastation. His voice is low, rough, like it's been dragged over gravel when he finally speaks. I knew something was wrong, Elise. I saw it in you, the way you've been pulling away, the way you've been so distant. I didn't know how to reach you. I didn't know it was this. His words cut deep, each one a reminder of how we've both failed to bridge the chasm that's grown between us. I feel tears prick at my own eyes, hot and stinging, as I nod, unable to speak, unable to look away from the hurt etched into every line of his face. We don't move for a long time, just stand there on opposite sides of the kitchen, the scratched wooden table a silent barrier between us. But then, slowly, he pulls out a chair and sits back down, gesturing for me to do the same. I hesitate, my legs shaky, but I lower myself into the seat across from him, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from trembling. The clock on the wall ticks on, marking the hours as they slip past midnight into the early morning, and we start to talk, really talk, for the first time in what feels like forever. The words come haltingly at first, jagged with tears and bursts of anger, but they come. I tell him about the loneliness that's been eating at me, how I felt invisible in this house, how I lost myself in the silence of his absence. He listens, his face a storm of emotions, and then he speaks too, his voice breaking as he admits he's felt the distance just as much, that he's been drowning in his own way under the weight of his job, unsure how to come back to me. There's a moment, somewhere in those dark hours, where the anger gives way to something softer, something raw and vulnerable. Clive looks at me, his eyes searching mine, and says, I should have tried harder. I should have seen how much you were struggling. I didn't know how to fix it. His honesty cracks something open inside me, and I reach out, my voice barely a whisper as I reply, I'm so sorry, Clive. I never meant to hurt you. I want to make this right. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust. He doesn't respond right away, just looks down at the table, his fingers tracing the familiar scratches in the wood, but I can see the conflict in him, the battle between the pain I've caused and the love that's still there, buried under the rubble. As the night wears on, we both acknowledge the hard truth. There's so much work ahead of us, so many broken pieces to pick up and try to fit back together. We're not naive enough to think a single conversation can erase what's happened, but there's a quiet determination settling between us, a shared understanding that we can't go on like this, pretending everything's fine when it's not. At one point, Clive reaches across the table, his hand hesitant, calloused fingers brushing against mine. It's a small gesture, tentative and fragile, but it's the first real connection we've had in months, and it sends a flicker of warmth through me, a tiny spark of hope in the darkness. We talk about seeking help, about finding a counselor who can guide us through the erosion that's eaten away at our marriage. And for the first time, I feel a glimmer of optimism that maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild what we once had. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.